Rob J gave me an incredibly generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Koma World Eater versus Witch King of Angmar, Maelstrom Wanderer and Tuvasa. A 3-lander, but we don't have any ramp. I don't think we can really make use of the control to do much of anything there in the early game, so ship that back. Luckily do get into some lands. We've got a forest that we can make for the wild growth, so that'll pan out alright, I think. And Imprisoned in the Moon we draw into, so this is going to have to be a Verdant Catacombs into Tropical Island. And of course we throw wild growth on there. Another piece of turn 1 ramp from Tuvasa, a Birds of Paradise. And another one from Maelstrom Wanderer. The Witch King throws out a Jet Medallion. Alright, just a land for us, so I'll play that and we'll go for the Archdruid's Charm and ramp with that at instant speed. And the first commander we see is Tuvasa the Sunlit and Gwenna Eyes of Gaia, so you would expect the Temur player to ramp like crazy in a Maelstrom Wanderer deck. And there we see Phyrexian Arena, so just go for the Archdruid's Charm now, I think. Now then, we could go for a somewhat interesting land. Something like Ancient Tomb, but I think I'm just going to grab the Hedge Maze and try and throw something away off the top that we don't like the look of for next turn. Alright, an Octomancer, I was just looking at maybe tutoring for that with the card that we just played, so let's keep that on top. And of course, know that we're drawing into the Octomancer, so I think we go for that here. We're still going to have time for the Lightning Greaves, I think, before we get down our commander, I mean. Oh, I didn't gift. I didn't play it. On Magic Online, you can, when you click it, it'll give you the option to choose between the two, and you have to click one of those, and I didn't go for the gifted option, annoyingly. I'm getting distracted by, whenever you hover over a card now, when it decides to work, yeah, it kind of just gives you this expanded version of the card, and usually you have to click a hotkey in order to get it to do that, so that you actually have manual control, but it's just doing it on its own here, so distracted for a split second by that and made a misclick annoyingly. So I was going to give an Octopus over here, we would have had a copy as well. Anyway, in the meantime, Tuvasa goes in at the black player with a Daybreak Coronet and a Canopy cover, so effectively has hexproof. It's First Strike, Lifelink and Vigilance as well, already dealing 6 commander damage to a player. Overlord of the Hauntwoods will come in with a land, and they have paid the 5 for that, so it will not be impending. That will come down as a 6-5. Untaps the Gwenna as well, turn it into a 3-4 with a plus counter. And there we see the land that it enters with. Phyrexian Arena triggering for the first time from the mono black player. Goes up to 7 at the beginning of this turn. Has got down Barad-dûr, by the way, which I'm not sure I pointed out previously. Oh, and there we go, a Toxic Deluge, so if we were going to get an Octopus into play under this player's control, I don't know, he might have just put the 2 extra life into that and wiped it out anyway, so I can't feel too badly about losing out on this. If he wanted to play a board wipe there to slow down Tuvasa, because he might be assuming that the commander damage is imminent. So yeah, I think we would have lost out on the Octopus there. So this turn is Sylvan Library and a Lightning Greaves, I think. And with a bit of luck off the top of our library with the Sylvan Library, we'll be able to look at 3 cards and hopefully get into a land straight into Koma. And that is to untap, create a token of a chosen enchantment. Skyshroud Claim is more ramp for Maelstrom Wanderer. And we'll be at 4, 5, 6, 7, so might see the Wanderer next turn. Went for a Hedge Maze himself there. And keeps the card on top, 3 cards in hand at the moment. Phyrexian Arena, seems as though our opponent's got this down early enough. I don't tend to run Arena because it can be way too slow and be a dead card in your hand, but if you get it down early like this, he's already drawn 2 cards off it. If he keeps it in for much longer, it will be well worth playing. Witch King of Angmar after the board wipe, so very much hoping for a land off the top here. And drawing to 1 straight away will probably take the 8 life and gain some cards with Sylvan Library here. It is Sakura Tribelder, which is a shuffle for the turn, and the new Sandstorm Salvager. So let's go pay 4 life, and pay 4 life. Then drop an island, go for the Koma. If I make any more misclicks, I do apologise. It's every time I go to click on something, it's trying to expand the card and it's very, very off-putting. So getting our commander into play. It cannot be countered. It does have Ward 4, but why risk it? Someone could pay 5 mana for a Source to Plowshares, so might as well put Haste and Shroud onto the Koma. And now we want to deal damage to someone, so let's go... We'll go to the left against Tuvasa, I think, because I don't want Maelstrom Wanderer swinging in towards me just yet. Although maybe trying to outrace him would be the best idea. And I'm hoping that with the tokens we'll be able to dodge any Edict effects, so... Managed to deal the entire 8 combat damage, or commander damage to our opponent, and get the 4 Koma's Coils into play. Don't have to worry about holding up activated abilities during our opponent's turn like the original either. Just so happens that we've got some really good means of dealing with Maelstrom Wanderer as well in our hand. Don't necessarily want to remove it, I point it out every time, because they can just recast it again and get more Cascade. Anyway, another Aura here, and we might have picked on the wrong player, a Mantle of the Ancients. So +1/+1 for each Aura attached to the creature, and they got to reanimate the Daybreak Coronet and the Canopy Cover. And we are getting punished. It's not commander damage at least, but First Strike, Lifelink and Vigilance on a 10/10. So we could maybe force them to block next turn. If they're worried about us getting commander damage off on them, they'll be at 16. Druid of Purification. When it enters, each player may choose an artifact or enchantment you don't control. Destroy each permanent chosen this way, so probably our Sylvan Library or Lightning Greaves is going to go down. And then we'll see what the black player chooses so that we can choose something different, assuming that he goes after auras here. Okay, it doesn't seem as though we get to see what our opponents are choosing. I'm just going to go after the Canopy Cover, because I want to be able... Oh god, come on. See what I mean? This is a really weird inclusion our opponents, or not our opponents, that Daybreak have decided to go after here. Canopy Cover, I'm trying to select. Oh wow, so this player went after our Sylvan Library, or the Lightning Greaves. We lost 2 things to Tuvasa's 1 thing that he lost. I'm actually very surprised by that. I'm glad that we managed to go after the Canopy Cover then, because I was actually concerned that that would get chosen twice there. Black Market Connections for the black player. Able to ramp, make creature tokens, draw cards. He's down to 25 already and he hasn't done that much. He'll have to be careful. A Chrome Mox. Has to exile a card from his hand. He's got 6 available to him. And decides to put underneath that a Demonic Council. Followed by Cosmos Elixir, which will be a bit of life gain and maybe some card draw. Yeah, gain 2 life. Unless your life total is higher than your starting life total. Well, he's nowhere near that. So 4 cards in hand, doesn't swing in. The Cosmos Elixir gains him 2 life at the end of the turn. Now, we don't have Maelstrom Wanderer to contend with yet, thankfully, so see what we draw into. It's another land, so we're not doing incredibly well. We could try and get this guy to block, but he can just go for the... This is the problem. He can make a copy of this now, can't he, and trigger the Canopy Cover, but we could get him to tap during the main phase at least. Yeah, we're just going to have to do that, I think. At least then we can go for Song of the Dryads onto the Canopy Cover, maybe. Okay, he's actually past priority, so maybe he doesn't realise he can do that, or maybe he can only do it at sorcery speed. Oh, you can only do it as a sorcery anyway, so that's fine. So that means that the auras fall off. I was overthinking it apparently. Play a land. And then hopefully we manage to land combat damage here and our opponent doesn't scoop to us at instant speed. Because we won't get our Koma's Coil tokens if they do a rage quit on us. Okay, so back down to his starting life total and 16 points of commander damage. Get some more Serpent tokens, so I don't see that there's too much point in going after the Sandstorm Salvager really. Unless we want to knock Summoning Sickness off it and start putting plus counters and tokens on them. I suppose I could have swung in with some Koma's Coils down the middle. So let's go for Sakura Tribe Elder and pass the turn over. Alright, Tuvasa deciding to just pass through the turn, so with 4, 5, 6, 7 mana held up, are we just going to assume that's Rift? We can just test them next turn, swing in with Koma and force them to use it if they have it. Like I said before, it could just be a 5 mana Swords. Strange that the Maelstrom Wanderer player is passing straight through the turn as well. You don't particularly care about getting countered as a Maelstrom Wanderer deck, so not sure what's going on there. You don't mind getting bounced with a Cyclonic Rift either. Anyway, 6 cards after the draw step and Phyrexian Arena. Then Black Market Connections loses more life as well. Goes from 26 down to 20, so made a treasure, a creature token and draw a card. A Swiftfoot Boots, and puts the Swiftfoot Boots on his commander as you would expect. And then a Revel in Riches after that, so if he manages to make a decent number of treasure tokens, then that is a game win. Does not swing in with his commander, so in response to the 2 life from Cosmos Elixir, we'll crack the Sakura Tribe Elder for a Revel in Riches token. Should have cracked it in response to that really, I suppose, before it entered. We've got plenty of blue, so let's just grab green. Alright, just more ramp with the 3 visits, so it's straight through to combat and see if we get rifted or anything. We'll take all the Koma's coils down the middle, Koma to the left, and we are not holding back any blockers because we're assuming that we know what's going to happen here. And there it is. So in that case, it's 3 visits will leave us with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the wild growth is free, so can still go for this. Unless the Maelstrom Wanderer player wants to counter it. I'll just make it a basic wild growth after that onto an untapped land. Basically pays for itself. And we will get our uncounterable Koma back down. Noteworthy that this has come back into play because whilst the Imprisoned in the Moon was on our opponent's side of the field, we still controlled it, so it got bounced by the Cyclonic Rift. Client, wake up. Okay, Chaos Warp, and they're holding up the ward, so able to pay that on the Koma. So we've got rid of 2 pieces of interaction from our opponents at least, and didn't get into anything. Oh, would have been nice to get hold of that. Rishkar's Expertise. Oh, it doesn't get put back on the bottom with Chaos Warp, that's good, so going to take us a few turns to set up, but it will have to be Koma next turn, and then hopefully can go for the Rishkar's Expertise within a few turns. Our opponent slowing us down nicely here. A Songbird's Blessing going on to the Yenna and making a copy of it straight away. So the enchanted creature has to attack, but they'll get a couple of auras potentially next turn with that. So I think we are going to have to... yeah, probably going to have to go Imprisoned in the Moon onto this again. Our days might be numbered, especially if we see the Maelstrom Wanderer next turn. Our opponent seemed very worried about us. Anyway, swung in, got himself a One with Nature and a Bear Umbra. It's noteworthy that with 1 card in hand there is a Serra's Sanctum here as well. And then One with Nature, it does hit us, takes us down to 15, so they get to do the Rampant Growth off the One with Nature. Sora's well revealed off the top, but still in the deck. A Calyx Sword, so we know they don't have swords in hand. True Conviction and some lands. Now let's see if we go down to Maelstrom Wanderer this turn. Druid of Purification back into play again, so yeah, it seems pretty obvious which sort of direction we're going to be looking in here. So this guy said Magic Online doesn't work with this Druid of Purification. He's taking the Umbra Mantle, so I'm assuming he means Bear Umbra, which is what I would have chosen. So putting this in the graveyard might be risky, but I'll take the original as opposed to the token. And you'd assume Tuvasa would go for our Wild Growth because he doesn't have much other choice. So just manages to keep... yeah, looks like the mono black player went for the Songbird's Blessing as well. If we could have seen that, I would have gone after the token. But there's a Migration Path, further ramp for the Teamer player. Jack Medallion back into play. We'll assume that the mono black player is just going to be rebuilding here. Phyrexian Arena out again. Chrome Mox with 9 cards in hand, and this time throws away a Sacrifice. Then the Cosmos Elixir. So let's see if we can get in. So we knew we were drawing into the Rishkar's Expertise. I think we go for our commander here. It can block the Maelstrom Wanderer. We'll just have to hope that we'll still be able to block this with our big commander. This assumes that it stays in play, otherwise we might be going down. And we'll wish that we played the removal instead. So it's a good job that we went for that 3 visits last turn, because we actually needed the additional land. Very much missing the Lightning Greaves, so... also turns out that getting rid of our haste was a good plan. Yenna makes a copy of the Aura again. So he's going to get into something else. Able to untap the Yenna. Serra's Sanctum tapping for 3 mana. And Tuvasa the Sunlit into play. Maybe they can get another enchantment down. And that will cantrip with the Tuvasa a Mystic Remora. That's a means of refilling your hand. Look at this mess on Magic Online now. 4/4 has to swing in to the right. but they've at least got 9 power and toughness that they can throw in the way of our commander. So Songbird's Blessing will trigger now that there's 2 of them, and they managed to get themselves into an On Sarah's Wings, which is +1/+1 Flying Vigilance and Lifelink, and a Spirit Mantle pro creatures, so making it unblockable pretty much. But that goes on to the Tuvasa. They're still at their starting life total thanks to all this life gain. This is where our commander damage might actually begin to matter. But we now can't get through this thing thanks to the 9 toughness on Tuvasa. One with nature triggers for a rampant growth. Now our opponent does know that we've got Imprisoned in the Moon available to us, so might be worth going Rishkar's Expertise next turn and throwing that into play, because we'll still be able to afford Song of the Dryads afterwards. But this has been a very resilient player, as Enchantress decks tend to be, which is why I was focusing over there. We're split between the Teamer player and the BAMP player, in all honesty. We've seen that Source of Plowshares again. So we know that Source of Plowshares is on the bottom of the library after seeing those reveals. Kogla Titanape, thankfully it can't very well attack our Koma. Getting rid of the Yenna is probably going to be a good idea, which might be what our opponent's aiming for. And it does target the Yenna. So finally that thing goes down after doing a decent amount of work. And that has diminished the Tuvasa down to a 6/6 as well. Still not weak enough for us to push commander damage through. Triggers the Mystic Remora for a card draw off a Mana Vault. 1 card in hand for Maelstrom Wanderer. I'm amazed that we haven't seen the commander yet. Now the problem is, again, like on a previous turn, if we swing in over here after getting rid of Tuvasa, are they going to scoop before we manage to swing in and get our tokens? Because that could make all the difference now with a low life total against Maelstrom Wanderer. Sad that you have to play like this, but it is the case, unfortunately. Maybe we'll be able to go Rishkar's Expertise, a free Imprisoned in the Moon, and then hardcast the Sandstorm Salvager for some blockers, just in case we're desperate for them. Notice that this land Emergent Zone has come into play, although they've tapped it for mana for a Swiftfoot Boots. Mystic Remora will draw again. Could be that the BAMP player gets into counter magic for our Rishkar's Expertise, which wouldn't feel good. Maelstrom Wanderer is holding up triple blue as well, and there is a modal. You'd play modal counter spells in this deck just in case you cascade into them. So modal counter spells, there is one that is triple blue, so they could be holding one up themselves. Anyway, commander back into play with a Swiftfoot Boots equipped, and finally taps out into that Black Market Connections, being very reckless with his life total. 5 cards for Tuvasa at this point. And Koma doesn't have reach for some reason, so we'll have to be wary of Witch King, but he's not swinging in with it, thankfully. So there we see ourselves a Watchful Rad Stag. I'm not sure we'll be able to see this go off during this game, unfortunately. So let's attempt to get our opponents to do something. Rishkar's Expertise. See if they want to counter or something. They'll draw, hopefully, 1 last card from the Mystic Remora. And we're just hoping it's not relevant. Would have been risky main phasing the Rishkar's Expertise if the black player had mana held up, because we're playing into an Edict, but luckily didn't see one. Let's see here then. We can just fight the Tuvasa, because the lifelink doesn't matter. Yeah, let's try that. Hopefully they don't give it a massive buff or anything. Yeah, a little bit risky. I'll go for the Imprisoned in the Moon, our opponents know about that. Getting this for free from the Rishkar's Expertise, of course, so Mystic Remora triggering again. And I'm going to risk, just for the sake of seeing it do something. I don't think we're longed for this game, in all honesty, and I'm hoping that this guy takes the damage. I'm praying that he does. Let's get the Rad Stag into play before we swing. Might be that we just gave him an extra mana for the Teferi's Protection, actually, so that would be interesting. But I haven't got to play with Rad Stag yet, so while it's not the optimum play necessarily, I do like to try and show off different plays on the channel. So hopefully he takes the damage here. It looks like he is doing the honourable thing. Black player's holding up priority for some reason, which I really wish he wouldn't do, because the longer the BAMP player has to wait, the more likely he is to scoop. Alright, and damage does go through, so I do appreciate this player playing it out there. Makes all the difference. So we get our 4 Koma coils, and each of those enters, which gives us 4 evolve triggers on the Watchful Rad Stag. And when they evolve, they multiply. Only get the 1 resolution of the evolve triggers, but hopefully we'll see more Rad Stags multiply as the game progresses. So I have to get rid of some lands here. Let's make it the pain lands while we are at a low life total. I'm going to risk getting rid of the Sandstorm Salvager. When we've got haste available to us, it might be worth actually keeping, but we've got E-Witness if we're eager to get trample on our tokens. And our opponents still don't know about the Song of the Dryads that's been in our hand all game, because all we've shown them is that Imprisoned in the Moon. So now might be the time for the Wanderer. Also drawn into Kenrith's transformation now as well. So Maelstrom Wanderer down for the first time by turn 9. Cascades into Atali, Primal Conqueror. We're in Simic, we're not the best board wipers here. Grabbed himself a Necropotence off the Atali, and a Disciple of Freyalise. I've never got to play this myself, but we might see it played here. See the effect of it played, I mean. So they've got a 2-3, they might want to sacrifice. Sarkhan's Unsealing is their own off the Atali. So they might get a trigger from this when the second Cascade trigger resolves. See if they want to sacrifice to the Freyalise. Put this in a few decks, but I've never managed to make use of it yet. They do have Necropotence now and 40 life, so might not want to make use of this. They do decide to give up on the Cogler, so they draw up to 9 and go up to 47 life, which is 7 extra life that they can put into that Necropotence. And then it's a Kodama's Reach after that with the Maelstrom Wanderer Cascade. Bloodthirster means there are multiple combats this turn, and they'll get a Sarkhan's Unsealing trigger first for damage to any target. Goes on a chump blocker, so it doesn't look like we're going to see that much from the Watchful Radstag after all, unfortunately. They are tapped out now at least. Going to have to be careful how they attack. If they're worried about double strike from us or anything. Luckily we're not in the best double strike colours for them. So the Trampling Atali goes to the right. The Demon comes in at us, which is nearly half of our remaining life total. They are going to have to sacrifice the Atali to the commander. I'm not sure if they remembered that. So Witch King of Angmar goes on the stack. So he's forced to get rid of that Atali, which means it's not poisoning anyone at least. But there is an additional combat phase. And decides to attack him with the Demon to the right this time, so he's going to have to sacrifice that as well. And does decide, I don't think he has to attack. Yeah, it's just an additional combat phase. He can't attack us again, but he doesn't have to attack at all if he's worried about losing it. Maybe he's trying to get him to block with this. Decides against it, so he's gone down to 8. Gonna lose life to his enchantment triggers, don't forget. So turning out to be a very interesting one, this. See if he takes any life to the Necropotence, because otherwise he's going to have to wait until his next end step. Does have 8 cards in hand though, and discards a Thran Dynamo to hand size at the end step, so Necropotence will exile that. Didn't put any life into the Necropotence though. Phyrexian Arena takes our opponent down to 7. Black Market Connections takes him down to at least 6 to make a treasure. Decides to go down to 1, I like it. So maybe you can swap life totals with someone. Revel in Riches back into play, is maybe looking for a board wipe with 6 cards in hand. Doesn't know about our Swiftfoot Boots. And unfortunately Maelstrom Wanderer has haste built in, so probably us done if we get rid of the black player. Can't make any plans until we see what he does. The Witch King goes at the Maelstrom Wanderer player, and that is the Ring Bearer, so he gets to draw and discard. Discards a Profane Tutor, which is probably too slow now, and wipes the board after he goes for the attacks, so that plays into Maelstrom Wanderer's hand, unfortunately. Do we even lose our commander to that? We do not, so that is down to a 1-5. Does trigger Revel in Riches 2, 4, 6, 8 times. I think he's already got a treasure, so with spot removal he won't be able to make another one because he's not going to be able to pay the ward into the Koma, so I don't think he's winning with the Revel in Riches quite yet. But I was hoping to enchant the Maelstrom Wanderer with Song of the Dryads or something. Expedition map into play, 4 cards left in hand. He can search up a land of his choosing with that if he wants to. Looks like he's just cracking these treasure if he can't win with them. Maelstrom Wanderer would likely swing in with him if the enchantment was a threat anyway. Okay, peer into the Abyss onto himself. Do you round that down? No, you round it up, so he should lose that 1 life, shouldn't he? Half of his life total is 0.5, and then round it up is 1, so yeah, takes himself out there, just having some fun by the looks of it. Does change the game potentially though, because... Alright, well, we've got Cyclonic Rift, so there we are. So, Sarkhan's Unsealing, I think, has to go down, because they can just point that at us directly, which means we have to shock in the breeding pool. If we want to go for Song of the Dryads and Rift, we'll need 10 mana. Let's swing in first of all. Obviously managed to get through. It's commander damage that we are looking at here, so we get our Koma's Coils, and then let's shock in breeding pool. This kind of gives away what we're holding up, but we don't have much choice. Don't want to leave them with Sarkhan's Unsealing when they've got a full grip. So what can they do to us with 7 cards and a whole bunch of mana? Alright, Beast Within onto the Song of the Dryads. This is a cast trigger, isn't it? Yeah. Well, nothing we can do about that. It does give us another blocker at least, but I imagine they want to cast a couple of big creatures. Maelstrom Wanderer. We just have to bounce the Sarkhan's Unsealing now, annoyingly, before they get any more big cast triggers from Maelstrom Wanderer. And there's no point in giving them back that mana vault, so yeah, we'll do 2 mana Cyclonic Rift. Wipes out... oh, it wipes out the creatures as well. Alright, so... well, that's us done anyway then. Yeah, they've got us either way here. We needed to swing in and hope that they couldn't deal with the Sarkhan's Unsealing. And there we go, they got into a small creature that could have dealt 4 damage to us off the enchantment as well, so... yeah, they had us a few different ways there. The board wipe from the black player I think ended up making a difference because, like I said before, we wanted the board intact so that we could have our opponent not recast Maelstrom Wanderer, and we just saw why we don't want it to be recast, because if we can put something like this onto it, hopefully it's out of commission for the rest of the game. They can't then get triggers from Sarkhan's Unsealing and things like that. But I think we got to show off Koma quite nicely. I think we need to be much more succinct with regards to getting commander damage through, and even buffing the Koma up so that it can threaten commander damage in one combat phase. The problem is that we don't get into double strike that well in Simic, but it's only the first game I played with it, so if you want to see more, be sure to let me know, and we'll see if we can do any tinkering along the way. Massive thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel as well. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.